Hey, friends. Welcome back to the Point of Books podcast. I am LaShawn, your host. And did you see Bonito Bowl this weekend? My 3 years of Spanish from high school allowed me to understand the context of most songs, but good music, let's be honest, good music doesn't really need translation. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio put on an excellent show. I was on my feet, shaking my hips the entire time, especially when Nueva York came on. I about lost my mind because that is my song, has been my song, and the one song that I will always be like, yes. Anyway, it was a good time. Perfect follow up from last year's show with Kendrick Lamar. I felt like they were both needed as a part of culture in the United States because this is America and these are our two top minority groups. So, in the end, majority maybe. The end. So, anyway, let's talk about today's topic, which is a heavy one. In 2026, censorship has reached unprecedented levels across the United States. According to pen.org, in 2025, book censorship in the United States is rampant and common. Never before in the life of any living American have so many books been systematically removed from school libraries across the country. Unfortunately for Black authors, the censorship of Black books is nothing new. For years, books by Black authors have been targeted for censorship and repression and banned in school districts and school libraries across the country. This censorship is usually fueled by religion or political beliefs, and even I'll say parents' needs to protect, quote unquote, their children from things they deem not not appropriate. And yeah. So anyway, I believe that Black writers should be able to tell their stories and that children and young adults should have the freedom and access to these stories and ideas. And I just always want to say this about book banning as a parent myself. I understand if you don't want your child to read certain books. Like, I completely understand that. That is your right as a parent to monitor and maybe to even have control over what your child is exposed to. But what you do not have the right to do is make that decision for my child. And that is where I fall on the book banning bandwagon, you might want to say. I feel like books about the Black experience here in the United States are being targeted. And like I said, that brings us to the topic on the podcast today. I wanted to bring you a list of 5 books by Black women that have been on the banned and restricted and on a banned and restricted list. This is not, I repeat, not a definitive list. I have another one up on my website that I will link to, but these are a few books to get you started. Okay. I feel like you should be aware and maybe you want to go pick up some of these books to keep them, in circulation. Number 1, a book called Pride. It's a Pride and Prejudice remix by Evie Zoboy, a 2018 young adult novel that retells Jane Austen's classic with a focus on Afro-Latino culture, gentrification, and racial identity in Brooklyn, New York. This book is frequently targeted for its focus on race, class, and the impact of gentrification, which are often categorized under criticism of CRT, which is critical race theory, and school curriculum challenges. So that is why it usually ends up on the banned or restricted list. The next book is Salvage the Bones by Jasmine Ward. This book follows 15-year-old Esh Baptiste and her family in the 12 days leading up to Hurricane Katrina. Set in a poor Black community on Mississippi's Gulf Coast, the novel captures survival, grief, and fierce familial love as each navigates first love, pregnancy, and loss. As the storm approaches, everyday struggles collide with natural disaster, revealing how poverty, resilience, and devotion shape survival and how they all survive. Why was this book challenged? The main reason is sexual content, they say. According to an article by NBC News, Salvaging the Bone is one of 50 books that Texas parents want banned from libraries. The description of the complaint for this book states, in asking to ban this book about the plight of Black working class family as they prepare for Hurricane Katrina, a parent in Katy wrote, I object to the explicit description of a teenage girl having sex with boys in her social group. Dag, like teens don't have sex, but I digress. Anyway, the third book on our list is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. Dear Martin follows Justice McAllister, brilliant Black high school senior at a mostly white prep school in Atlanta, whose life changes after he is wrongly detained by police while trying to help a friend. Struggling to make sense of racial bias, he begins writing letters to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., questioning whether King's teachings still apply in today's America. That sounds like so normal, doesn't it? It has been banned or challenged in numerous school districts across the United States, primarily due to its candid exploration of race, systematic racism, and police brutality, which some parents and administrators deemed divisive, quote unquote. The book is a frequent target of conservative led book challenges, often in connection with efforts to limit discussions on racial inequality. The fourth book, this stuff makes me mad. That's why I have to keep pausing because I'm like, seriously? Are you that weak? But anyway, I digress. 4. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Yes, it has been on the list, friends. This is a classic. This book follows Janie Crawford as she reflects on her journey through love, marriage, and self discovery. Set in early 20th century Florida, the novel traces Janie's 3 marriages and her search for life defined on her own terms. Now, according to the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston has been the frequent target of book challenges over the years. One complaint from a parent was for alleged sexual explicitness and language. And in 1997, a parent objected to sexual explicitness and language in this book when it was assigned to their child at Stonewall Jackson High School in Brentville, Virginia. After the review, the book was retained on the high school English reading list, which Hurston's protagonist does experience a sexual awakening, but the scenes are mild by anything these kids can see on TV. Hell, stuff they can probably see in their own high school hallways. But anyway, there are references to rape as Janie learns her own family story, but there is no description of rape on the page. This book is a classic. And I also saw someone else requested it be off the school list, banned from their school libraries because of the language. They said that it was not written because of the vernacular. It's written in African American vernacular. If you've ever read Their Eyes Were Watching God, it reads like people actually talk in certain areas of the country, used to, still do. I still remember the first time I read Their Eyes Were Watching God, and I remember it took me a page before I was like, oh, this is how some of my relatives talk. After it clicked in my brain, I personally had no problem reading it. Also, if you listen, I'm always an advocate for lists for audiobooks, as y'all can tell lately. If you listen to the audiobook, if that is giving you trouble, that will help you. But anyway, I digress. The fifth book and last book that I want to call to your attention is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. We all know the story of Celie, a young Black woman in the early 20th century South, as she survives abuse, silence, and erasure and slowly learns to claim her voice. Told through letters to God and later to her sister Nettie, the novel traces Celie's journey towards self-worth, love, and independence. This book has been frequently banned or challenged in the U.S. schools and libraries since its 1982 publication, primarily due to its graphic depictions of sexual violence, incest, homosexuality, and explicit language. Critics often cite the book's intense content as inappropriate for students, while advocates highlight its importance in addressing racism, sexism, and frankly, resilience. I don't remember how old I was when I read this book. I don't know if it was before or after I saw the movie. When did The Color Purple come out? Hold on. When did the movie Color Purple come 1985. So if that came out in 1985, that means I was 9 when that book came out. I was 9 years old, and I saw it shortly thereafter when it, appeared, I guess you can say. I don't know if I saw it on I didn't see it in the movie theater, of course not, but I think I saw it on, we used to have VHS tapes. So I think my parents bought it and I saw it on VHS because if I was about 9, then I would have been about 10 when I actually saw the movie. So that means that I read the book sometime between the 6th and the 7th grade because that summer between that year between January and the fall of that year before I went to middle school, that is when I read a lot of books in the library that maybe necessarily I wasn't supposed to read. I covered the entire African American section because we had one. It was like just like there was no rhyme or reason to them. They were just literally piles of books on like tables and in bookcases. And it really didn't look like it had a filing system. I'm sure it did looking back on it, but there were literally piles of books. And I found and I was like, oh, it's a book because you don't know. And I remember reading the book and saying, oh, this is really different from the movie. But even then, and like I said, if I was in the 6th grade, if I was in the 6th grade, you're going to go to 7th grade, that means what? I was 12. So I was not scarred. I was not traumatized. I did not go out and think I should have promiscuous sex or anything like that. So I don't know. Anyway, that's that. That's my story of that. Okay, so those are 5 books that I want you to think about picking up yourself, all written by Black women, all not worthy of being banned or restricted. I think if put it like this, if I read them at the young age that I did, I don't see the problem with anybody else doing it. And that's that. Now, let's get to the currently reading section of the podcast, which I'm kind of excited about today because let's just get into it. I am currently loving my Color Soft Kindle. I believe I have the second version of this one, not the very first one that came out, but the second one. I know there are complaints. I know, but I love mine. I especially love that I can highlight passages in different colors and take notes on it. It helps me so much to be able to go back later and pull my highlights when I write my book reports. Remember, I am writing actual book reports on at least 3 books a month that I read in order to further my understanding and to make my reviews a little bit more intricate. Um, in order to write 2 of my reviews today, I relied on those highlights heavily, and I think that it was worth the money I spent on it over, a year ago now? I bought it in November or December of 2024. So it's well worth the investment. And I love seeing the color copies of my book, but I really, really in the last little while have enjoyed the color highlights because I even have it color coded based on like characters, themes. It's great. It is excellent. If you like to do that type of thing, like in your regular books, this is for you. Okay, so I just finished reading. I have 2 books today that I cannot wait to talk about. I finally finished If I Ruled the World by Amy DuBois Barnett. To recap, it's 1999, and Nikki Rose is the only Black editor at a prestigious fashion magazine until she's told one too many times that Black girls don't sell. She quits and takes over Sugar, a failing hip hop magazine with big potential and even bigger problems. Given 6 months to save it, Nikki dives into New York's world of power parties and ambition while proving she can lead. But her biggest threat is her wealthy, married ex lover who wants to destroy both her and the magazine. While loyal friends and an unexpected romance, Nikki must decide what success really means. First of all, let's talk about Amy DuBois Burnett. She was the editor in chief of Honey, Ebony, and Teen magazine, where she made history as the first Black woman to helm a major mainstream U.S. magazine, and as deputy editor in chief of Harper's Bazaar, So this is believable because you know she has the background and she knows what she's talking about. Okay. Now that I've given you this spoiler, I gave this 5 stars, and I'm going to tell you it was really on vibes alone. This gave me Fly Girl and Coldest Winter Ever vibes, but make it grown. My main complaint as an adult reading back, like we read those in book club last year, and my main complaint reading those books back was those girls were so young and so dumb, and why did I like this? You know what I mean? I think, and it was almost fantastical, but in a way, true, you could see it happening. This was more realistic, but like I said, make it grown. This is 90s core. This is took me back to what I consider is the best years of hip hop and the era where I was in high school and college and just coming out on my own, starting to pay bills, partying, going to the club, being in that world, not the publishing world, just being in the world with the clubs. And so I could see it all. Did the main character, Nikki Rose, get on my everlasting nerve with the lessons she refused to learn until about 80% of the book? Yes. But did her naivete and blind spots propel the story forward and make for a great book? Also, yes. Two things, of course, can be true at the same time. I literally shook my head like every other chapter, like, Nikki, girl, when you gonna learn? But maybe I was sympathetic to her because having lived in that era of life and I know what the social norms were that she was working in and around in hip hop culture. All in all, it was a good story with a satisfying ending. And sometimes you really just want everything to wrap up, and it wrapped up beautifully. I loved it. The second book I want to tell you about is Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. This book, I don't like the description given by the publisher because it's not right. Let's just say it like that. So I'm gonna tell you my own little description. Grayson and Shadera. Grayson is like the heir apparent to like the president of this dystopian world, and because this is a dystopian dark romance, and he is the executioner. So he kills people for a living. This is what he does at his father's bequest. Shadera is a contract killer. And her latest contract is to kill Grayson. And so she goes to kill him, and something happens, which I won't give in, and they end up engaged to each other. And their struggle to navigate the world that they are in, they both learn things about each other, and it goes from there. Okay? That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm going to say. Baby, listen. I love a good enemies to lovers book, but I'm going to be honest and tell you that usually they are enemies for about 25% of the book. And it's really just lust and sexual tension disguised as not liking each other. Or it's something silly like he wrote a bad review for her, I don't know, her cupcake shop. Or it's one sided enemies, like where one of them hates the other one and the other one has been secretly loved in them, so they don't know that they're not enemies. You know, it's something like that. But these two, they hated each other. Like, baby, it was 68% into the book and they were still trying to kill each other. Like, literally, they shot each other. It was 68% in. And I'm like, well, goddamn. And it was literally until about 90% of the book before they admitted that there might be something more, which was fitting since this is a duology. It did end up on not a cliffhanger, but there was a character who did something unexpected. And I was like, ooh, wee. And then there was something else going on. It was so well done. It was so well done. Even the side characters were fleshed out, and I was just as invested in their stories and what happened to them as our two main characters. And I love that both of our main characters were no angels. Like, morally gray is an understatement. I love a morally gray character. I just like it when everybody lives in the gray. That is just me. If I could have given this 6 stars, I would. As it is now, I have to go to the bookstore and add this to my bookshelves as a trophy. I've got to get my trophy. Trigger warnings. The main trigger warnings is that there is a lot of violence. There is abuse that happens on the page, but no sexual abuse actually happens on the page, but it is alluded to. There is also rape that is alluded to, but it does not happen on page. And I'm going to be honest with you, our two main characters don't even get to do the do. They don't even get to have sex fully. That's all I'm going to say about that. Like them side characters, like I said, the side characters were just as fleshed out and you were just as invested in them. So I highly recommend this book. If I could have gave it 6 stars, I would have. If you want to read it, it's on Kindle Limited until I think midsummer. The book is being traditionally published, and that's when it will come off Kindle Unlimited, I think, for the author's IG page this weekend I saw. Okay. Now that I've got that off my chest, and I hope I've inspired you to go read one of them books, let's talk about what I am currently reading. I am currently reading Ken by Tarahi Jones. It comes out Tuesday, and I've been waiting to tackle this one until it comes out next Tuesday. So I've been waiting to tackle this one until it's closer to its release date because I want a fresh perspective for you. And the time is here. So I have pulled it up. I have my notes ready, tabs. We're going to get into it. What's next? I am trying not to make too many decisions because I've been a mood reader this year so far. And I've been rereading old books when I fall into a slump. So who knows what's next? Before I get back to Ken, I'm going to reread an old Nora Roberts book that I haven't read in a long time and then get into that after that. So we'll see. Okay, friends, that is all I have for you today. As always, if you enjoyed listening, I would love it if you would follow me on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. And if you have a minute, please think about leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing the podcast on social media. It helps us to grow and find other bookish friends. If you'd like to connect with me, you can email me at pornoverbookspod@gmail.com. And you can also connect with me over on Instagram at LaShawn Wilts or TikTok at the same name. Right now on Instagram and TikTok, I am doing a series on 28 books by Black authors for Black History Month. Today is day 10. Going over there and see what I've got going on. I would appreciate that. Get the word out because, people talking about they want to read that verse. I'm trying to help them out. Anyway, thank you again for listening. I'll talk to you later, friends. Bye-bye.